Oh, we're going live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first talk of this day in Pink Track. A short note to all listeners. The most active participants will win an ebook from our sponsors, Pact. So use that Q&A function to ask our speaker any questions that you would like, preferably about his talk today. And now I would like to introduce you all to Ralph Roosmalen from the Netherlands, who will talk to you about 6 components that will help teams to create value. Ralph, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Willis. Let me reorder my screen. So, welcome. In this talk, I would like. Oh, wait, this is not as we expected. We have to improvise here. Sorry for that. Let's do it like this. Give me a few seconds. There we go. Share. Yes, now you can see my screen. And then I'm going to disable it over here because that's a bit too much seeing it twice. I'm going to put myself in the middle. Yes, there we go. Yes, so welcome by this talk about art of teams. Unfortunately, it is still online. I would have loved to come to Vilnius, but unfortunately, it's not possible yet. A quick introduction about myself. Then I'm going to talk about the art of teams. 6 components to help teams be successful. Then I'm going to dive in a bit more in team development models, and we have some time for questions at the end. You will get a copy of the slide deck. I mean, I've uploaded already to the system that we're using. I'm not sure if by that it's available for you, but we have to check. But you can always reach out to me afterwards if you don't get the copy, and I will send it to you personally. So my name is Ralph Roosmalen. I'm from the Netherlands. And basically what I do is I'm helping teams to create values. And often that's done nowadays in the agile context. So I often help people with organizations with agile way of working. I'm from tech background, so often it's agile, Scrum, safe, less. I'm not really connected to one method or framework, just what works for the teams. I wrote a few books. I've worked with Men 3.0, a few books that you can download for free from our website, and I'm working on a new book that I hope to be publishing in a few weeks, months. Always takes more time than expected, about the art of teams. And that's something that I would like to share also with you in this talk. Great teams don't happen by accident. Sorry, you don't go to the office and then suddenly you find your team is doing wonderful, great. They surprise you every day. It's hard work. And some teams will never get there. Based on research, based on my own experiences, based on other models, I concluded that successful teams have 6 themes in common. They have clarity. They understand their impact. They trust one another. They engage in conflicts. They act reliable, and they care about results. And I would briefly like to discuss those 6 topics with you. The first one is about clarity. And it's about having clarity in the team about a lot of things. Allocation of tasks in the team. Who's going to do what? Who's going to pick up this new activity? Clear accountability. Who is allowed to make a decision about yes, no, go, no go in the team? Decision-making transparency. Big thing in politics, but also in real life, in a team. How do you know how decisions are made? What kind of things were involved in that decision? What kind of data was involved in that decision? The skills of team members. What can I expect from other team members? Responsibilities. What can I ask them to do? What should they do? Norms in the team. Do we use WhatsApp for business communication? How much hours a day are we online? Do people expect to respond to emails within a day, within an hour? Those kind of things. And it's very important to have clarity about those kind of things. You can have clarity on different levels. You can have clarity about things outside the organization even. Because your team is not just an island in the ocean, it's connected to a lot of other things. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So clarity about governance, politics. Does that influence your team? Think about GDPR in Europe. That was a big thing that definitely influenced a lot of teams. That's legislation. Competitors, what are they doing? The Workers' Council. Maybe not outside the organization, but still in some countries, really big thing to keep in mind when you work with privacy, security. In the organization, outside the team, what's your budget? Security, privacy, IT, a hot topic nowadays. What are you allowed to do with security? What are you allowed to do with privacy? Are you allowed to look into the database? Are you allowed to have those email addresses? Project milestones. You will be surprised how many teams don't have the project milestones clear. When are we really expected to deliver something? And inside the team, again, as I've also mentioned on the previous slide, the skills. But also, what can I expect from other team members? The team values. What do we care about as a team? What do we think is important? How do we make decisions? So that are the areas that you need to think about clarity in your team. And how do you create that clarity? Because I think theory is okay, that's cool, have some theory, but how do you really do it? How can you really make it pragmatic? One thing is a planning workshop, scenario thinking. Think about the future. What could happen in 5, 10 years? Or let's imagine that we don't have internet for 1 month. How will your team deal with that? What can you learn from that scenario? Impact bubbles, stakeholder mapping. If you don't know who your stakeholders are, then you have a problem. You need to have clarity about that. Value sessions. What are the values that you in the team find important? Think about them. You can write a user manual for the team. Or you can ask the team to write their own user manual. How do people approach the team? What does the team not like? What does the team really like? Asking the team to deliver something within 1 hour without giving them any background information, they probably will not like. So why not write that in the user manual for the team? Creating clarity about that for the external stakeholders. Sorry, the team decision matrix. How does the team make decisions? If there are no managers in the team, how do we make decisions? Team competence matrix from Men 3.0. What kind of skills do we have in the team? What kind of skills do we need? And the team canvas, you can download them from the teamcanvas.org website or com. But you can also build your own canvas. Start with the things you need. Make the team killed. And then slowly extend. Not start with the big canvas from day number 1, but slowly extend. Just a few practices that you can use to create clarity. The next topic is about impact. The team wants to know the impact that they are making. How are we changing the world? How would the world look without the team? And if that would be the same, then that's a good thing to discuss, because that would be weird. And impact is related to the purpose, the vision, the mission, the goals of the team, the impact making on the environment, sustainable, very important nowadays. And also young people, but I also believe all elderly people like me, I just call myself elderly, want to know how this team is making the world a better place. It's important. And why is it important? Because it motivates you. Some people really find it important to make the world a better place. There's this Dutch company who is cleaning the oceans, removing the plastic. I mean, the people working it there are really motivated because they know they're making the oceans clean. And teams want to make the world a better place. And of course, there are different visions on what is a better place, but I've never heard a team saying, we want to ruin the world. And there's research that we all feel the need to create social value somehow. It's in our, just as we are as humans. And if you feel that your actions benefit other people, if you know that people are happy about the things that you do, your performance will increase. You will perform better. You will do more value creation. That's the reason also to know why you do, what kind of impact you make. And again, a few tools to understand the impact that you make. I mean, a very famous one is the golden circle. Why are we doing this? How are we going to do this? And what are we going to do this? So you can do a session with your team to find out the why, the how, and the what. You can think about the Ikigai model. It's a model from a Japanese book. And there's 4 questions. What are you good at? That will give you energy. What do you love doing? Because maybe you're good at it, but you don't love doing it. So what do you love doing? What does the world need? If there's no need in this world, then nice, but... And what do the people pay for? Because you need to have a business. You need to have sustainable. I mean, not saying that you should make a lot of profit, but it needs to be funded. And if you answer those 4 questions and you can find the hotspot in the middle, that's where impact is. That's where you can make impact. OKRs, objective key results. They make very clear what the goals are of the team. But if you do it correctly, you also connect them to the levels higher in the organizations, in the end to the organizational OKRs. And by doing that, you can directly link your OKRs, your objectives as a team, to the company objectives. And you can think about motivation. There's a model called Champrox from Men 3.0 again, where you can discover what motivates you. And if goal is very important for you, and it connects to the goal of the company, the purpose of the team, then you're on fire. Then you go. Trust, the third component. And I really believe this one, and the belief that something is good, sincere, honest, and will not try to harm or trick you. Psychological safety is often mentioned in this one, but for me it's different. Psychological safety is about feeling free, feeling the openness to speak out your opinion. And I always feel that. I mean, maybe not always, but often I don't have a problem with that. For me, that's almost always there. But the trust that people will not harm me or that they don't have a hidden agenda, that's something else. So you should have trust in the organization. Stakeholders should have trust in the team. A big thing in some organizations where management, directors, CEOs are not really trusting the team, asking to come up with metrics just to check on them. Then there is no trust. And the team will know that. They will feel it. They're not idiots. But also the other way around. Teams should have trust in organization stakeholders. They should believe, have trust that organization stakeholders have the best intentions. Because if they don't trust the organization, it's hard to do the other way around. And team members should have trust in each other. They should know that they're safe, that they can speak out, and psychological safety is part of this, and that they can share their opinion. And that's okay to make a mistake and learn. Because if there's no trust, it will create a negative mood in the team. It's not fun to work in a team there's no trust. The cost will increase because you're going to put more checks and rules as an organization. Let's check, let's create more policies. And then you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the more checks and rules you have, the less engagement from your team. Why would I bother? Why would I care? You're checking me anyways. And then the organization will say, we need to check on those people. You see, they don't care. You have to put more rules in place and policies in place. And people will think, why would I care? I mean, and there's no learning. As there's no feedback anymore. People don't feel safe. The psychological safety component is missing. People don't feel safe to give feedback to each other. By doing that, there's no learning. Because if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, I cannot improve. So what is required to have trust in the team, in an organization? Knowledge. You should have basic knowledge about the topic that you're working on. And it depends on the context. I trust my bookkeeper completely with my bookkeeping, with my financial administration. I don't trust my nanny with my financial administration. On the other hand, I trust my nanny with taking care of my kids, where I don't trust my bookkeeper to take care of my kids. Consistent behavior. If people are constantly changing their behavior, constantly giving different responses to the same situation, you will not trust them. Good relationships. You need to talk with people. The Dutch soccer team, they had a great week, where they won with 6-0 from Turkey. And Van Gaal stepped in as a new coach. And one thing that he did was have talks with all the players. Individual talks. And he's not making friends with them, he's not becoming friends, but he has talks with them, he builds relationships. And the other thing that he does is transparency. Van Gaal as a coach, as a football coach, you know exactly what he thinks and what his opinion is. Full transparency. So to help a team grow trust, again, skills and experience matrix. What can I expect from my people? What can I expect from my team members? Again, OKRs, already talked about it. But this is now, in this case, also creating transparency. Feedback rep, or using nonviolent communication. Give people feedback, but disconnect the emotions from the facts. First give the facts, then give the emotions connected to those facts for you, how you perceive it. Compliments. Really just very nice compliment. And get to know your team member activities. I mean, you probably know more than me, but drinking beer, having exercise where you ask questions to team members, all kind of things. Get to know your team member, build those personal relationships. Conflicts. Conflicts is where progress occurs. That's not my quote, but I really like it. Conflicts is where innovation happens. And we all have conflicts every day. Everyone. That is part of our life. Small conflicts, big conflicts. I have conflicts with my girlfriend about what are we going to eat, which movie we're going to watch. Are we going to do Netflix, play a game, whatever. All conflicts. And that's not a problem. That's part of the relationship. And most conflicts we just discuss, talk about it, and solve. Sometimes it explodes, but still that is a good thing. And for some reason, most people, including me, myself, often connect conflicts with slamming doors, people getting upset, shouting, people leaving the team. But that's not, it doesn't have to be. 3 different types of conflicts, where people first often know 2 of them. Task-related conflicts. How are we going to execute this task? How are we going to do this testing? How are we going to do this activity? Different opinions. Process-related conflicts on a higher level is more about vision, strategy, responsibilities in the team. And the third one is relational-related conflicts. And they are the bad ones that you don't ever want to have those, because they are really about relationships, about who we are as a person, about often caused by different views on the situation, different cultural backgrounds, because we are just different. Those are the ones that you always want to avoid. So how to deal with conflicts? Because I think you need to have them in your team. First of all, accept that there are conflicts. Small conflicts, big conflicts, they are there. Be prepared. The moment that you have a conflict, and it's a very intense conflict, that's probably not the right moment to say, time out, let's describe how we're going to deal with conflicts. No, then it's too late. So be prepared, make agreements upfront how to deal with conflicts. And keep in mind, and that's for me so important, that everyone in the team has the same goal. We all have the same vision. We all want to accomplish the same thing. We just have different insights, different opinion about how to get there. But as long as we keep in mind that we all have the same goal, it should be okay. We should be able to manage those conflicts. And if we don't have the same goal, then we have something to talk about. So 2 tools to support conflicts. The first one is the conflict manifesto. What you can do with this manifesto is just print it, put it on the table, put it on your Miro, Mural, Jamboard, whatever digital tool you're using, and talk about it. Talk about conflicts. Talk about how you as a team perceive conflicts, what people think about conflicts, but just make it discussable. Talk about it. The second one is more about if there is conflict, how should we approach it? How should we resolve it? The first step is, are we all in? Are we really committed to resolve this conflict? If not, then we can stop those steps. And we need to wait till everybody's in. Second is, what are the facts? Looking at this conflict, what are the facts? Get out the emotion, what are the facts? So if we have the facts on the table, what is then the actual conflict? And sometimes you even forgot about the actual conflict. So step back, what is the actual conflict? What is the impact on the team and organization? What does it with the morale in the team? The costs, the progress, the milestones. What is the impact? And then let's move forward slowly. What are possible alternative solutions? What are possible solutions? And then select one. And keep in mind, and I really like this principle, it's a principle from Sociocracy 3.0. Keep in mind this principle. It's good enough for now, safe enough to try. You don't need to come up with a perfect solution. If it's good enough for now, if you don't go bankrupt as a company, if you don't destroy the team, the product, and then let's try it out. Let's learn. Let's move forward out of this conflict situation. Reliable. 2 parts in this one. The first one is about team goals. Are you really committed to deliver the goals? Are you really there to contribute to the goal of the team? All team members? And I think this is very important, especially for management teams also, but also for work teams. Do you support the decisions made by the team? And that's also part of being reliable for me. Or do we speak with different tongues to different people? Because that is not perceived as reliable. For me, it's all about the forecast. I mean, the weather is great in the Netherlands this week, and that was the weather forecast. The weatherman did not give a weather commitment. He can't, or she can't. They give a forecast, an estimate of the weather. And commitment is about being dedicated. And I know for sure that the weatherman or the weatherwoman is dedicated to give the best forecast. And I think that's what we should use with teams. What is the forecast for the value creation that we're going to do? Not the commitment. What I ask of team members is to be committed to be a good team member and to deliver a realistic forecast. And if you're not reliable as a team, again, frustration, negative emotions, that will not help the team. Think about customer services. If they promise you to call back tomorrow with a solution and they don't, how do you feel? Bad. But if they call you back and they just tell you honestly that they don't have a solution yet and they will call you back again tomorrow, then you accept it. Low team performance. Why would you care if other team members don't live up to their word? It will go down. Your team is not an island in the ocean. Your team is part of a flow, always. Something is created, it's given to your team, you do something and you move on. And if you are not reliable as a team, you stop that flow in your organization. You stop the flow where your team is part of. And the last one is about supporting decisions made by the team. If the team makes a decision to go left, and you're going to talk about to a colleague from another team at the water cooler that you think right would be a better solution, going right, that's not being reliable as a team. Who should I trust then? And why is that so hard? Too much work. Teams are overloaded with work. So try to minimize the work. Increase specialization. When I started doing software development 20 years ago, or even more already, a long time ago, I could make an application alone with Delphi, Interbase. There we go. Nowadays, you need to have front-end, back-end, UX designer, etc. And by doing that, it's hard to give feedback to each other. And if I can't give feedback to you, then it's hard for me to see if you're reliable, because I don't know. Maybe it is difficult, maybe it's not difficult. Large projects. The world is getting complicated, complex. Large projects with dependencies makes it hard to be reliable. And still, some teams, unclear goals. What do we really need to create? So how can you increase reliability? Peer review, feedback with each other, feedback rep again, to create that feedback going on. Tell people that they were not reliable. Tell people that they are reliable, also positive. Forecast and ranges. Never give management or the teams or whatever an exact number. Your team is not a machine. So accept that there will be uncertainties. And another one that's coming from Sociocracy 3.0 is constant decision making. How can you make decisions in a team or in a meeting that everybody has a voice? It will improve the decision making and it will improve the people supporting the decision because they were heard. Results. And then you often talk about high performing teams, and I find it a bit like some kind of magical Valhalla. And this Professor Richard G. Hackman, he talks about high performance teams as good teams meet client expectations. Cool. But great teams actively shape those expectations and then exceed them. So they communicate with the clients and even then surprise them. I mean, that's for me a high performing team. And results is not about just pleasing the customer, pleasing the person, the team who gets your value that you created as a team. For me, also the team happiness, the team development is a result. And it's maybe an open door, but individuals don't succeed or fail. you need everyone in the team. So make sure that that is also recognized by organization. And to improve the results, we talked about impact, we talked about creating a better place in the world. Connect those goals with the results, or connect the results with those goals, because then you can see how you contribute to that great goal. So how to help the team? Again, pragmatic retrospectives. Now, if you're from the Agile community, then I don't have to explain to you what it is, but it's regular reviews, constant improvement. Stakeholder mapping again, impact bubbles. Do you know who cares about results of your team? Because if you don't know, then how do you know if they're happy? Celebrate success, cake time, in whatever form you're going to use it. But celebrate small successes and lead by example. Be transparent on success and failure. And it's okay to fail as long as you learn. And if you show that, then people care about results, they will improve. So this is the totem model that I just explained. In the book, I dive deeper into the different models, more practices. It's about clarity, impact, trust, conflicts, reliable, and results. Something else I would like to talk about, also described in the book, sorry, don't want to make it too much promotion, is team development models. Does your team look like this? I mean, is your team a set of robots that always act the same, always act predictable? Or is your team more like this? And in this picture, nobody was hurt. It was a really fun activity, trust me. But this is your team problem. It's chaos, good days, bad days, unpredictable, sometimes a bit predictable. But that's how a team looks like. That's the real team. And I talked about the complex world, about your team being part of a bigger system. A team is not alone on the ocean. Your team is somewhere in this jungle. And maybe you look at it as a tree, or maybe a certain area of this jungle, but it's connected to the jungle. It receives input from the jungle. It responds to the jungle. It responds to the weather. It responds on the seasons. It's constantly moving, trying to find a stable environment, as also other parts in this jungle are doing. And by doing that, they constantly are in development. There's never a boring day in the jungle. Some team models, look at it like this. It's a linear model. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Yoo-hoo, we did it. But if your team is part of a jungle, there's no tree that will grow like this. Because if there's a lot of water, it will grow faster. If there's no water, it will grow smaller. So maybe it should be more like this. Popping up, constantly moving. It's hard to capture it in a graph. I mean, this was the best that I could find. In this case, it's from Fitness Landscapes. But this is more like your team. Unpredictable. So if linear models are not how team works, then this model is a bit weird, isn't it? We all know this model. And there are a lot of coaches who are saying, okay, this team is new, it's forming. So we need to go to storming. And then we go to norming, performing, adjourning. But there is no research available, no proof that this model is working like it is described. The US military did a great, a large research project, and they looked into more than 100 teams, and they could not find evidence that this model always works like it is. Some teams go directly to performing. Some teams never get out of storming, whatever you try. Some teams go from forming to performing, back to storming, back to performing, back to storming. I mean, they're all over the place. And of course, those phases, you can put those phases on a team, like, hey, this team feels like it's really performing, but there's no guarantee that they just went to the first 3 phases, as described in this model. There's another model in nature, in evolution, and it's called punctuated equilibrium models. And this model is different. It says there is a stable environment, then something happens, and then again a stable environment. And this transition, the performance will go up. It will change. And I think it will also go like this. Not just once, but it will go continuously. stable environment, something happens, we find a new balance, and we move on. We increase, we adjust, we make ourselves suitable for this new environment to deal with the transition that happened. I mean, COVID-19, a great example for many things, but also here. A lot of teams were thinking about organization, thinking about work from home one day, but it's a bit difficult. Can I trust people? Then COVID-19 came. That was a transition. For some companies, in a week, with thousands of employees, they went virtual. And of course, it was not all done and perfect after that week, but they were there. And now they're finding a new balance. And now we got the next transition going to the hybrid model. And if you would ask companies a year ago, would you go to a hybrid model? They would have said, no, we're going back to the office. So performance development of a team it's stable. Of course, you should try to improve. Something big happens, and then again, you are stable. This is called also the Gersig model because this model is not called the Gersig model, but there is a Gersig model. Professor of Human Resources, she observed that teams have major transitions. As I said, which they dropped all patterns and reconnect with stakeholders, reviewed their performance, and then they made a dramatic progress. And that happened after a stable environment, and then something happened. And what she discovered, and that was more interesting, that all teams that she looked into had to transition halfway the project. Exactly. Don't pinpoint me on 1 hour, but there was a deadline, a goal, December, and if the team started in January, teams had it halfway in June, July. Because then they realized, we have a problem, Houston. We're not going to make it. And they realized that they had to improve. They did, and then they moved on. So that's Gersig model. So how can we make this practical? Because a model is a model, but what can we learn from it? Kick-off meetings. Get together with your team, define a plan of attack, and there you go. It can be for the next months, years, but you start a kick-off meeting, depending on the project. It's a day, it's an hour. And then we enter the toddler phase. The team is happy, they're enthusiastic, they learn a bit, and they are preparing for the transition. Well, they don't know that yet, but it will come. And as a coach, as a manager, just leave the team alone. They are learning, developing, playing around, producing value, creating value, and protect them only when they're necessary, just like with kids, small kids. But have them, because everything that they do is preparing them for the transition that will show up. And then halfway the project, they hit the wall. They realize it's not going well. So you have this transition meeting. You can schedule it as a manager, as a coach. And they realize, we need to change our behavior. We need to change because we're not going to make it. And they will change the way of working, procedures, things like that. And then they will move on. And then they're in the maturity phase. Probably more open for suggestions because they realize, we didn't do that well in the first half of the project, and becoming more and more productive till the end of the project. Then you got the closing meeting, finish the project, you can do retrospective, learn, and take it with you to the next project. Now, nowadays, for most people, often work in some kind of agile Scrum environment. The sprint planning is there. It's just your kickoff meeting, or the kickoff meeting is there, it's just your sprint planning. The closing meeting is there. It's your sprint retrospective, your sprint review. The only thing that's not in Scrum there yet is transition meeting. And of course, it depends. If you're going to do a sprint of 1 week, then maybe having a meeting of 4 hours halfway the week is a bit too much. But if you do a sprint of 2 weeks, maybe have a quick review meeting on Friday afternoon would be a good idea. Are we still on track? Do we need to change things? If you're part of a release, then maybe halfway the release, you could set a transition meeting. Let's put a review meeting in. And most teams, most projects have the retrospective at the end of the iteration, end of the release. I'm saying just make it earlier, do it halfway. If you do safe, do some kind of review meeting halfway the PI. After 1.5 months, 3 sprints, review where you are before you start with the next phase of the PI. So that's what I would like to share with you, what I wanted to share with you. So we talked about the clarity, the Toyota model, about having successful teams, and they have clarity, they understand the impact, they trust one another, they engage in conflicts, they act reliable, and they care about results. And we talked about a team development model that is not linear. The Technos model is maybe not the best model to use, although we do recognize the different phases, but it will never happen as it is described in the model. And that your team is more like this kind of graph. And I think it was Church who said it, never waste a good crisis. And that's perfectly connected to this model. If something happens in the team, then use it to improve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph, for this presentation. It was very interesting. I already see we have some questions in the Q&A section. But first, as the moderator, I'll ask you my question first. Because you talked a lot about these 6 components that make a team successful. Of course, now in current times, a lot of teams work remotely and they don't even meet each other, or they are even based in different cities. Would you say that any of those components, or maybe several of them, are more important for managers when dealing with remote teams than they would be in normal cohabitated teams?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I forgot to mention that also. I can't answer that question. And I think they're all important. And again, if you need to take something away from this talk, then think about nature when you think about your team. Think about a garden. I mean, you have trees in your garden or plants that need shadow. Some plants need some extra water in summers. And it's the same with your team. I can't give you a recipe for your team, even not if it's a hybrid or a remote team. It really depends on the team, on the maturity, on the people, on the situation, on the organization, which of those 6 components are more important. I think in the end, they all need to be there. But maybe some teams, if you work professionals, or I mean, it doesn't have to be mature professionals, but some teams have no problems with conflicts. They're totally there. Where some people really struggle with understanding the impact because the organization is very unclear about it. And then I would say, okay, start working with the impact. And if you have no problems with conflicts, with the good conflicts, then don't focus too much on those, on that component. So it really depends on your team. And that's also what I don't like about Patrick Lencioni, the 5 dysfunctions. It's always like you start at the bottom, then the next one, then the next one. And yes, maybe you need some of them, but I think often it really depends on the team, on the context, remote, online, virtual, distributed, different cultures, which component is more important and which component you need to focus. And I think the only way you can discover which one it is to start working with your team and use your insights together with the team to decide, hey, this is important for us.
Okay, thank you for this answer. And we also have another question in the Q&A section. The question is by Ala. She's asking, are there some example of skills and experience matrix in the book, like in the book that you were talking about?
There is not really an example. I do explain how it works. I do explain the setup. So yes and no. I mean, I don't have a graph or a table in it, but it is explained and it does show how it works.
Okay, so you will be able probably to make your own experience matrix.
And you can always reach out to me on offline by email via LinkedIn, and I will help you. I mean, love to do that.
Okay, awesome. This was actually the only question that we had in the Q&A box. So Ralph, any closing remarks from you while we wait for like 15 seconds for any more questions to come in? And if there aren't any, we can close out the session.
No, I think, I mean, what I just said, I think the takeaway is think about your team as an organization, as a living organism, and always think about a garden, and that you as a manager, coach, you are the gardener. And how can you protect your team? And how can you grow your team? And there was no silver bullet for that. I mean, it's always experimenting, learning, and I think that's the way to go.
Okay, thank you, Ralph, for your thoughts and for this talk. Yeah, so we're closing out the session. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.